All right, it looks like we're starting to get some participants coming through now. Welcome, 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 everyone. I'm not sure if you can see me or Dr. Landry. All I see is Dr. Landry, so you don't need to see me if you can't. All right, so numbers are coming in good here now. So as people join, we'll talk a little bit about how we communicate with each other, how you can ask some questions, who Dr. Landry is, who am I, why is Dr. Landry speaking to us, why is he qualified to speak to us. Lots of people coming in, lots of names that I recognize, so that's pretty neat. Looks like we might even have a resident. I think I just saw a resident come through. All right, so people are still coming in. We are going to start promptly at 2 o'clock or maybe a minute after. We want to be conscious of everyone's time here. And we see that people are still kind of coming in. So for those of you that are here, welcome, happy COVID. Everybody's super excited about COVID right now. So, okay, we have a hand up here from a Miss Wallen. Okay, so Miss Wallen, when you raise your hand, this is part of our welcome. There is no ability for us to see your computer screen, but on the bottom, there is a question and answer tab. That in that tab, if you click that, you can actually write in what your question is, and then we can either give it to Dr. Landry or we can respond to you, via text, if that works for you. Looking to see if there's any other hands up. If it is a computer problem, I'm not sure we can help you, but we will do our best. All right, 2 o'clock. We still have some people coming in a little bit. I was supposed to start at 2, so welcome, 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 everyone. All right, still got a couple more people coming. All right, and it is 2:01. So to be conscious of everyone's time, we're going to start. I don't know if you can see me or not. You can see Dr. Landry. It's probably better. He's a little more handsome than me anyway.
Not hardly.
So welcome and happy COVID to everyone. One of the main reasons we're doing this is because it is COVID and we're trying to keep everybody safe, both our people that are interested in our communities and the people that live in our communities. I wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded. And so whoever you spoke with to sign up for the sessions, this will get emailed to you by them. And you may share this with your family or friends or whoever you see fit that you might want to, that may want to hear it. So I think that's pretty neat. So again, we're not able to see you, but you are able to communicate with us through the chat function. Oh, Miss Wallen wrote, just happy to say thank you for being here. So that's great. Thank you very much. That's such a great start to this. And so everybody knows how to use that question and answer function there. So we'll read out some of the questions and we'll try to hold them till the end if it's important for something else that Dr. Landry may be getting to or whatever it may be, but we'll help you with that. If you have questions specifically for a location like the Cedars of Dexter, Porter Hills Village, Cook Valley Estates, Chelsea Retirement Community, whatever it may be, there will be a slide at the end for some contact information. So you will know who to contact from there. And then the one thing that I'd really like to tell you is that my name is James Kelly. I am the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Brio Living Services. Brio Living Services just changed our name on March 1st. We were United Methodist Retirement Communities in Porter Hills. Boy, that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? That's just, not exactly something that's easy to say. So the organizations came together 3 years ago and we felt, and by we, really, it's our board as a not-for-profit organization, our board of volunteers, thought that it was a good idea that we come together with one unified name and one unified brand. And so we're now Brio Living Services. We are the 4th largest not-for-profit organization in the state of Michigan. And we are the 2nd largest not-for-profit senior living provider in the state of Michigan. So we're actually pretty big. But one of the things that we really like is that at each campus, all the decisions are made right there. So each campus has the autonomy of living with the residents that they have and making sure that what is happening at those campuses is really defined around those residents. And so what we do is our mission is to care for seniors from all walks of life, shore to shore. So pretty exciting that we do this. So without further ado, I will address Dr. Roger Landry here, who is also, to my heart, as a redheaded stepchild of an Army colonel, was a colonel in the U.S. Air Force. He's also a preventative medicine physician, as well as an author of an award-winning book and president of what is called Masterpiece Living, which really helps seniors and just people age well. So we're about to start our program here. And here comes Dr. Landry now.
Well, thank you, James, for that kind introduction and for this opportunity to speak with everyone. I would love to be there. I love the physical presence of people, but I totally get it. This is what I've been essentially doing for 2 years now. So getting pretty good at talking to a whole bunch of people while I sit down in my basement staring at my screen. I do appreciate this opportunity, and this topic has become even more important, certainly as we age as a nation, but as each one of us ages, and what we have seen within the last 2 years, that you can see that things can change fairly quickly, and it's very important that we be in the right place in order to continue to be healthy and to have a healthy longevity. We'll be talking more about that. So here's a graph that unfortunately represents the lifespan of the majority of people still. We're born, we become our best, couple decades, we're going on all cylinders, and then we begin this process of decline. Things happen, life throws us curveballs, and we get a little this, and then we just seem to just start down this curve. And now that we're living longer, that curve can be going down for a long time, as in this example, half the life of this person. You know, and this is painful, it's expensive, it's lower quality of life. There's really got to be a better way. And fortunately, I wouldn't be here if the story wasn't that way. There is a better way. So let's look at this dotted line. Wouldn't this be much better? Wouldn't this be, to be able to stay at very high levels, if not the very highest, at least, maybe just a little bit lower than what we were when we were a whole lot younger, but to be able to stay at that level for longer and longer periods of time. And when that little dip there in the dotted curve, that signifies life throwing you a curveball. And this is very important. And again, we've seen a lot of this in the last 2 years. It's very important for us to be able to bounce back to where we were, or at least to a level that's a whole lot higher than where the bounce takes us, so that we recover and are able to get back. And then have an end that is not as long, not as painful, not as impaired for a long period of time. The author Ashley Montague tells us, die young as late as possible. And that's what this curve is depicting. And luckily, we can say that this is possible. Back in the early 80s, Jonas Salk was on the board of the MacArthur Foundation, and he challenged the foundation to study those who seem to age the way this dotted line had showed you, who seem to stay at high levels of performance for longer and longer periods of time. Let's study them and find out what they have in common, because this is going to be important as our country ages, as our societies age. And they did. And what they found was groundbreaking. It broke the stereotype of aging, because they found that how we age depends more upon our lifestyle, the choices that we make every day, than genes or chance or serendipity or luck. Up to 70% of how we age is determined by our lifestyle and the choices that we make every day. And that actually goes up as we get older. So it's even greater than 70%. At the time, we thought it was all mostly about genes. And so this was really good news, provided we knew what to do. What does that mean, living a lifestyle? Well, that's why we're here today, because it's very doable. It's very easy. It does involve where you are in your life and what kind of support structure you have, but it is very, very doable. So MacArthur's told us this, that dotted line is possible. Now, if you've heard of the blue zones, these are areas of the world where Dan Buettner, who was with National Geographic, wanted to study where do people live to be very old but are very vital. Their age is not an indication of decline. It's more of an indication of just a different stage of life, but very high performance. He found 5 areas of the world. He called them blue zones. And you can see 4 of them there on the right. You know, okay, there's an island, there's Okinawa, there's an island in Greece, there's Costa Rica. But look at that last one there, Loma Linda, California. What was that about? I mean, Southern California tends to be a little on the crazy side about how they rush around and the kind of lifestyle they live, quite different than these others. But what is it? It is because in Loma Linda, there is a large contingent of Seventh-day Adventists who focus on their lifestyle. Lifestyle is a very important part of their faith and their religion. And the lifestyle they live is very similar to these other areas. So what is that lifestyle? We should know. These people move. And this is not about exercises or fitness centers that if they have them, that's great. But for the most part, they don't. It's about a lifestyle of moving. And this is the critical component. If we go to the gym and work out and then spend the rest of the day sitting at a desk, sitting in a car, taking elevators, taking escalators, sitting on the sofa, watching a screen, and spend it essentially sedentary, we lose a lot of the benefit of that 1 hour of working out. I'm not saying it's not good. You should. But the more important benefits come and the larger benefits come when it's a lifestyle of moving. These people, they get up, they move, they walk, they bike, they work. And very much like when at least those of us of a certain age remembered from our youth, we moved a lot back then. But for 99% of the time, humans have been on Earth, we were hunter-gatherers. Yes, 99% of the time we were. And by definition, we moved. In the blue zones, as with our hunter-gatherer ancestors, there was a strong social connection. We depended on each other. In fact, we wouldn't be here today as humans. Our species would not have made it had we not banded together and lived a strong, socially connected life, because we needed each other, and we still do. In fact, although the world has changed since our hunter-gatherers, our physiology hasn't. It takes a whole lot more time to change our physiology. And therefore, we're more like our ancestors they are today than someone who would be adapted to the world as it is today. So strong social connection. There was a slower pace of life. There wasn't any time. There were no watches for most of the time. And it was more about sunrise and sunset, phases of the moon, the seasons. And so we didn't rush around like we do today, where we're a time-based society. We were not. We were more in the present moment, more in where we were when we were hunter and gathering. We were there, and not so much the way we are today with our chattering mind and off somewhere else. We ate most of the time we have been on Earth. We humans have eaten something akin to what we now call the Mediterranean diet. We discovered the Mediterranean diet. Ooh, this is really healthy. And is it a surprise? This is what we as humans have been eating for most of the time we have been on Earth. So it shouldn't be a surprise. Fruits, nuts, vegetables, wild grains, fish, and small amounts of meat. Even though they were hunters, they weren't great hunters for quite a long time. And until we domesticated animals, the meat was not a ready source. So it was only small amounts. Everyone had a role. Someone very old, someone very young, they had a role in society, particularly the very old. They were considered, well, look at the bottom. They're considered cultural treasures in these blue zones, as they were in our hunter-gatherer societies. And cultural treasures because of their experience, their guidance, their wisdom. And you were lucky to have an older adult to guide you as a society. And it was expected that an older adult would give back, and they in turn were very revered. And but everyone had a role. No one was marginalized. And we were very close to nature. You know, we didn't visit nature. We were nature. It was part of who we were. And so we feel good when we go to nature. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise because, we share 15% of our DNA with a daffodil, 50% with a tree, even more with a fruit tree, like 60%. Mammals, we're up to 75, 80%. And I won't even tell you what we share with primates, baboons, bonobo apes. It would really freak you out. We are all part of nature. We're from the same material. So this was really not a surprise, but it was a very strong validation of lifestyle as the major determinant. Then this lady, Elizabeth Blackburn, she's an Australian. She's now at the Jonas Salk Institute. She won the Nobel Prize for discovering telomeres. You may have heard of telomeres. They're the very ends of the chromosome pieces. You see them on the right, that's stained so that we can see it. And when the cell divides, it always loses a little bit of the end of the chromosome. And if it lost genetic material, that cell would die. Well, and so what we see is those telomeres get shorter as the cell gets older, and it's an indication it's about to die. Well, she found and followed people who lived this lifestyle and found that their telomeres stayed longer. So there at the chromosomal level, we're able to see the effects of lifestyle. And if that's not enough, there's a whole new area of study called epigenetics. And this is the effect of our lifestyle on the expression of our genes. So now probably that we have mapped the human chromosome. So we could get, if you spit in a jar, we could map out your chromosomes and find, oh, there's good one, good one. Oh, there's one that's bad. That one causes disease. And so we've done studies where we track people who have certain bad genes that are associated with disease and follow those that live a certain lifestyle and those that live another. And we found that, again, this lifestyle of moving, learning, staying socially connected, having meaning and purpose, like the blue zones, like our ancestors, these people, most of the time, they never see the disease. It never expresses itself. That gene just sits there and doesn't express itself. This is phenomenal. I mean, so that genes, like the Time article says, DNA is not necessarily your destiny. So this is all very exciting, that lifestyle is a major determinant. And what's happening here, I think it's that we're building resilience. And we kind of have all had a crash course in resilience these last 2 years, haven't we? And we can see that life can throw you something you never expected. So the Ukrainians, certainly, as sad as that is, who would have expected that? But COVID with the entire world, we thought we were over such things, right? And here we are still dealing with them. So lifestyle, moving, learning, socially connected, meaning and purpose. We talked about diet, those things. That builds resilience so that when life throws you the curveballs, and they do, we'll be able to bounce back. So I wrote this book, and in it are these 10 tips. If you are interested, I refer you, but we'll have a crash course this afternoon, and I guarantee you, you'll leave with a significant understanding and a challenge, I think, to make sure that you do the small things that are necessary in order that you will more likely develop that resilience and experience a healthy longevity. So before I do, though, it's going to be natural for you when I give you a lifestyle tip to say, okay, I'm going to rush out and do that. And most people would do it in the way we approach New Year's resolutions. We make this huge leap of how we're going to change our behavior, our lifestyle. And it's very rare that someone succeeds. When I ask an audience, how many of you are doing what you made a New Year's resolution to do, it's very rare I get more than 1 or 2 hands out of an audience of 100. We fail. We're not good at it. So why? Well, it's very complicated, but we inherited from our ancestors a fear response. This is to keep us alive. And when we're faced with large change, that usually meant a threat to our ancestors, we respond with a fear response, which shuts down many of the functions that we need in order to be successful. Now, this isn't shaking fear as if someone is about to mug you or something. This is a low-grade chronic fear, but it's very effective at undermining our efforts to change our lifestyle and to get better. So how do we get over that? We take it in such small steps It never stimulates that amygdala, which is the part of the brain, that fear center. It never stimulates that, so that we go under the radar, so to speak. So I had a patient, and he was headed for a heart attack. He had pre-diabetic, hypertensive, overweight, sedentary, all of it. And occasionally he would make some changes, but then after a while he would go right back to where he was. His name was Tony. And so as I wrote this book, and I studied a book called One Small Step Can Save Your Life, and that's by Robert Moore from Stanford. It's about the Japanese approach to change, which is called Kaizen. And it's small steps. When you take a small step, you go under the radar of your fear center. So I said to Tony, how about for the next week, all you do is stand during TV commercials? He said, that's it? I said, yeah, that's it. He comes in a week, he's all puffed up because he did it. So he's feeling pretty good about himself. And then I said, Tony, how about you walk in place for the next week? And he did that. So get the picture. Over a long period of time, took about a year, he went off all of his meds. He's no longer pre-diabetic. He lost over 50 pounds. He is enjoying life, is a much higher quality, and he's more active because he enjoys it and he gets a positive feedback. He feels good. Occasionally he wouldn't make one of these steps, and we'd say, oh, it was just too big a step. Let's just ratchet it back. So you see, if you're patient and you take these small steps, you cannot fail. So let's remember that as we see these 10 tips, and before you rush off to change your entire life, do it in small steps. First one, use it or lose it. I think your grandparents probably told you this. You probably heard it before. It's intuitive, but it is so true. I had a career in the military, and I worked with some of the shuttle people, but in my adolescence, Apollo was going on. And I remember when they would come back from several of the missions, they had to carry the astronaut out of the helicopter because he couldn't stand. What was that about? We thought it was some horrendous thing in space, but it's just weightlessness. He didn't use his muscles. He didn't use his bones. His heart took a vacation because the blood he pumped was very light in weightlessness. And so in a short time, as little as a week to 10 days, he wasn't even able to stand. Now, I say that because we've invented our own form of weightlessness, and it's sedentary lifestyle. There was a paper from Mayo recently that was titled, Sitting is the New Smoking. He did all the work, all the research, and found that indeed, sedentary lifestyle, which unfortunately about over half our population lives, as defined by the Surgeon General, is more dangerous than smoking a half pack of cigarettes a day for your life. Very, very profound. So a lifestyle of moving and using other things too, not only the physical part, but the intellectual part, even our social skills. This is very important. We're talking about a holistic lifestyle here. No one chooses not to lose something, but when it happens, how we respond and where we are is critical. My story is when I was in college, I was in a bad ski accident and had to drop out of school, out of surgeries, and thought they had fixed it. And for 40 years, everything seemed to work pretty well. But then my knee and my ankle really started to act up, and I didn't like that. That wasn't who I was. I was an athlete and I was military, and this isn't me. And I got a little depressed, and I didn't do as many of these talks. And when I did, I was looking for words. My mind wasn't working as well. I'd go to the gym, but it hurt so much. I didn't go all that often. And when I went, I couldn't do as much. So I was circling the drain, ladies. I was circling the drain. So I was able to get the knee fixed. Many of you probably have your knee replaced, but the ankle was really a problem. And so I was kind of thought I was doomed. But lo and behold, I did find a surgeon. Now, this was almost 6-7 years ago now, who actually fixed the ankle for the Celtics. I live in Massachusetts, so he was just north of me in Boston. And I went, and I was the 200th ankle that he replaced, and everything changed for me. I was feeling optimistic. I was doing more, feeling better, and I'm going the other way. So where you are and how you can accommodate, what kind of support you have, be it medical, family, social, whatever. We as humans need that. It's very important that you realize life's going to throw you curveballs, and where you are is critical. Use it or lose it. I've talked a lot already about moving, about how this is a lifestyle of moving. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who is a CEO of a very large company, and he read my book, and he said, I called in my VPs and I said, I'm changing your parking spot. And it's now a mile from the door. It was a big place. And so every day they had to walk 2 miles. What he got from that is that they were feeling better. They were more productive. They healthcare costs went down, and they shared it with all of their departments and those who worked for them. And it changed the whole culture of the company to a much healthier company. And it wasn't, you know, certainly they did have a gym and people used it, but it was mostly just about moving. Like I said, you know, if we work out and then spend the rest of the day sedentary, that doesn't work for us. So it's taking the stairs, it's a bike, it's walking, it is taking a phone call while walking, pacing. It is about moving and accommodating when something happens, like I said with me. So when something happens, and it will, you don't stop moving, you accommodate, you know, and best you can. Take Stephen Hawking, look at him. He could only move his lips, and yet he was able to adapt with technology mostly and be able to contribute to the world in ways that are still marvel. And now what about the brain? Now, Nola here is an icon. In fact, unfortunately, she passed recently, and she was well over 100. But at 95, she got her undergraduate degree, the oldest person to get that. And the great thing about Nola is that she knew what I wasn't taught in medical school back in the 70s, that our brains are not like that graph I showed you where you're your best and then it only declines. That's what we believed then, but we found that's not true. Our brains have a characteristic called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity. This is the lifelong ability of the brain to rewire itself in response to injury, in response to disease, or in response to what we ask it to do. It's pretty incredible stuff. I mean, if you really grasp what I just said, we can rewire our brain. We are the architects of our own brains. So this idea that because I'm old, I'm just going to be worse. No, things may be different. You know, you can't do some of the things that you did at least as quickly, but if you do them, you can continue to do that even when there's injury. So there's a story of a lady from Harvard, Jill Bolte Taylor is her name. You can see her give a TED Talk. And when she was 39, a neuroanatomist at Harvard University, she had a stroke, devastating stroke. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk. She was in very, very bad shape. But she knew, as a neuroanatomist, about neuroplasticity. She knew with the social support that she had and the knowledge she had, she worked at it, and it took her a while, but you can see her give a TED Talk today. She built pathways around the dead part. The dead part was never coming back. She built pathways around there so that she could do the things she wanted and needed to do. And this is a capability of the brain we all have. How do we get it? Well, two things the brain really needs. One is it needs nutrients, so it needs blood. And so we need a cardiovascular system that's good and is going to continue to deliver blood to the brain, which uses more blood and more nutrients than any other organ system. And so that's important. So the moving part, that's important, but also to try new things. Try new things. If we keep doing the things we've always been doing, okay, it makes the pathways a little thicker, but it doesn't make for new pathways. So to make new pathways, try something new. So step out of your comfort zone. You know, it doesn't require you to learn Chinese, although if you do, we can see on brain scans, the brain gets thicker and thicker and thicker as you learn new things. But small things, eating with the opposite hand. All you need is a few more napkins, right? When you start putting on your makeup, lady, start on the other side of your face. Gentlemen, shaving, start on the other side of your face. Don't shave with the opposite hand. That's not a good idea. And get out of your comfort zone, as I said. Get lost. You know, the GPS can eventually find you, but just get lost and try to find your way. And again, trying new things. My wife and I, living this several years ago, we went to Greece for 2 weeks, and we had only made one hotel reservation for the first night we arrived in Athens, and all the rest was whatever. What a fabulous time. Wasn't always efficient, but wow, it was exciting. It was adventurous, and really feel stimulated by it. So it's really up to you about your brain. You are the architect. Connection, critically important. Like I said, we would not have survived as a species had we not connected with each other and bonded into groups. We are social animals. We're finding that the brain works better when we're connected. The heart works better. The nervous system, everything works better when we are connected to others. And when we're not, we're 2 to 5 times more likely to experience heart disease, cancer, dementia, as well as depression. So all the biggies, and it's related to connection. So, someone has a heart attack. If they go home to a house where there's no one there, they're twice as likely to have a second heart attack as someone who goes home where there's support. So this is critical. And I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine was a pilot in Vietnam. He was shot down. He was a prisoner for 7.5 years. He was frequently in solitary confinement, and he was tortured frequently. Do you know that he told me that when they came to get him out of solitary to torture him, he was actually secretly a little relieved, because they would come in, a human would come in, touch him, guide him down. He would see other humans. And he didn't like the torturing, but it was not as painful as solitary. We're finding this in our prison systems, that this is inhumane, and we're starting to not use it anymore. It is an inhumane thing. And unfortunately, many of us self-induce solitary. Staying in our homes for longer and longer periods of time. We stay in our homes because they were great places. Wonderful things happen there. They're great harbor, but not so much is happening now, is there? And then you lose a spouse and you're there, and you're a setup for, again, all of those significant diseases, heart disease, cancer, dementia, all more likely to happen. And so it's very important that we make plans in order to stay connected. And, life is such that, we may have a lot of friends at some point, but they tend to drop off with, when they may move, or they were related to our children or related to our job, and it continually diminishes until we're pretty much in solitary ourselves. So this is critical, ladies and gentlemen. Stamatis Moritis was a Greek freedom fighter. He was wounded in World War II. They sent him to the United States to get fixed. He was allowed to stay. He had a whole life. He married, had a career, children, grandchildren. And then he was diagnosed with lung cancer and given about a year to live. He said funerals are cheaper where I'm from in Greece. So he went back to his island in Greece. And he got into bed and he waited to die, and nothing happened. So he, like a good Greek man, he went down the local taverna, and there are all of his friends from childhood, and they're yucking it up, and they start to do that regularly, and he's feeling pretty good. So he planted a vineyard, and he worked in his buddy's olive grove, and he's 102. He was diagnosed at 69 to die within a year. Someone asked him, "What does your doctor say about that?" He says, "I don't know. He's dead." Friend of mine put it better than anyone, I think. Better to eat fries with friends and broccoli alone. It is that important, social connection. And unfortunately, as I said, we tend to be programmed within our society, become more and more and more alone. Haven't we just had a crash course in what isolation can do for you? I can't tell you the number of people in the communities we work with who said, "I am so happy that I am where I am. Had I been there, I would have been totally isolated, totally alone." And this made all the difference for me. Yeah, there was some bad press about some initial deaths, particularly in skilled nursing. But what I have heard are accolades that this was the place I am so happy to be. It is so important that we be in the right place when life throws us that big curveball. Your risks, you can't ignore them, ladies and gentlemen. You wouldn't take a car that had bad brakes and drive, a major distance. and you wouldn't do it. And so you can't do it with your life either, to be like an ostrich with your head in the sand. And for me, it was colon cancer. My father had colon cancer, so I'm at higher risk. So every 5 years, when the guy chases me with a 6-foot snake, I let him find me, because I can tell you, I am not going to die of colon cancer. Now, I may get it, but because it's detectable, it's treatable, and it's a slow grower, I'll be able to manage that. And it's that way with so many diseases that before, when I was in medical school, were death sentences. So it's important to make sure that you lower your risks, but don't do it to a point where you don't live your life. Because remember, trying new things, and being adventurous, it's important. And there's such a thing as the dignity of risk. Don't let others put you at risk either. Like this. No, you don't want to drive with a bad driver, but our families love us so much that they would, this is why you don't want to live with your family, your children, because they love you so much. They want to make you a bubble person. They want to keep you safe because they love you. But you can't grow, which is necessary in order to have a healthy longevity. Trying new things, growing, it's important. And so again, remember this dignity of risk and the fact that, living is risky. You want to manage it. You don't want to ignore things that you can do something about, but you also want to live. A friend of mine came up after a presentation and said, my mother had her 90th birthday. We had a party in the backyard and she was late. We figured, oh, what happened? She lives by herself. They called, no answer. They started calling emergency rooms. And then just then she comes down in a parachute. Do you think she asked her kids whether that was a good idea? No. Something she wanted and had to do, because you should never act your age, ladies and gentlemen. To act your age in our society is to basically buy into the stereotype that aging is only about decline, and it is not. I'll tell you a story. Again, I was in the military, and Chuck Yeager was one of my patients, and the fellow who broke the sound barrier. He walked into my office one day, and we did the physical, and he was in his late 50s. And he started telling me stories about his life, which was fascinating. And then he said, Doc, I think on the 50th anniversary of breaking the sound barrier, I'm going to do it again. Now I was a young Turk in 30s, so I knew everything, as a doctor. So I said to Chuck Yeager, now this is the Chuck Yeager. I said, but Chuck, you'll be 73 years old then. He looked at me, laser eyes. What's your point? Exactly. What was my point? I was associating a number with function. And we're knowing now that is not a fair association. If you expect it, then it happens. No one thought that we could ever run faster than a 4-minute mile. And then back in the 50s, Roger Bannister did it. And within 45 days, someone else did it. And then 30 days. And now we can have high schoolers sometimes who do it. So expectations can limit you or they can stimulate you. And if we do buy into this thing that the aging is only about decline, that's exactly what will happen. Henry Ford said, if you think you can do something or you think you cannot, you're probably right. So don't act your age, Remember Nola? She did get a master's degree at 98. She had said, I think I'll get a master's. Well, she did. So she's an icon. And Michelangelo had some good words for this. It's not so much that we don't shoot what we aim for. We shoot too high and miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it. So it's expectations. Now, here's a big one. Our society, as I said, is much different than our ancestors. Our physiology really isn't adapted to it, and yet we have a very stressful world. Time-based, production-oriented. We have a chattering mind because we're humans. We're always chattering. We inherited a stress response as a life-saving thing, to flee or to fight or flight mechanism. The problem is that we can, that's meant to do something and to be short-lived because it's all hands on deck relative to our physiology. The problem is our chattering mind can trigger this, and we can have chronic stress, a chronic fight or flight response, and that is a killer. That rots us from within. You know, up to 80% of all of our healthcare visits are stress related in some way. We are not adapted to the world that we have created. Now, we're not going to change it, but we should be aware that we can alter it for ourselves. Now, I know some of you out there are artists, and I usually like to ask an artist these questions, but I'll have to do it virtually. So I ask an artist, what happens when you're painting to time? And they'll say it goes away. I don't even know it. And you know, you cannot be stressed if you don't have a sense of time, if you're present in this present moment. And then I say, how do you feel? And they say, oh, I feel wonderful. I feel happy. I feel at peace. I feel joyful. And they're not in some altered state. It's just that they're in the present moment. Where we spend so little time with our chattering mind, it's our to-do list, it's worrying about it, it's catastrophizing, or it's going back to, some negative things that happened in the past, and we're very rarely in there. So when we have something like art or a walk in the park, a pet, a book, some music, meditation is designed for this, then if only for a few seconds or minutes, we are in the present moment, we reboot this stress so that it doesn't continue to escalate. So find that. You'll know it when you find it. It's very important that you do able to just shut down that chattering mind and be in the moment. You know, may not be the party you hope for, but we might as well dance. Purpose. If we don't have purpose, we wither, ladies and gentlemen. Mary Oliver, famous poet from my neck of the woods, tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. Without purpose, we don't have to get out of bed. It's something that gets us out of bed, and it can be something small. It just has to be meaningful to you. It could be a garden. It could be trying to wipe out hunger in the world. It could be something small, something big. Albert Einstein said, there are 2 days that are the most important days in your life. The day you were born and the day you find out why. Profound. Look for that. You had purpose. Now you're older. Things change, and purposes change. They can change from week to week, day to day. But it's important that you do have a reason to keep you going. It makes all the difference for health. Alfie Date here is the oldest man in Australia, and he gets up to knit sweaters for penguins. They've been exposed to oil spills. They preen their feathers, ingest the oil, and they die, but not when they're wearing one of these sweaters. That's what does it for Alfie. Dalai Lama had something to say about this, and I totally agree. When our purpose involves other living things, it is particularly powerful. People, animals, the earth, the planet, whatever. Kids, got to have kids in your life. Intergenerational, doesn't have to be young children, but it should be, but also young adults, someone not our age. Dostoevsky, the Russian writer, said the soul is healed by being with children. And I think we've all experienced that, but we get to a point in our lives where we don't get exposed to children. Now, these Brio communities, they make sure that there is an intergenerational connection. They can facilitate that, like they can so many things about this lifestyle that otherwise you would not have, social connection being a huge one. And being with like-minded people relative to being adventurous and that sort of thing. So that's why I like partnering and talking with them. And the last one is about laughing. Did you know that people who are half full, those who see the glass as half full, are very positive? They live 7.5 years longer than those who are half empty. This optimistic view we see in the centenarian study in New England, the people over 100, the common characteristic is an optimism. It is what they have to be optimistic about it when you're a centenarian. Well, they say, well, I'm just enjoying life as it is right now. I know I've had lots of problems and I've managed them, and I'll manage the next one too, but I'm just enjoying life. So it's really being in the present moment. So laugh. It's a critical component, and it significantly changes the quality, and as I just told you, the quantity of your life. And it draws people to you. So you get that social connection and all the other parts of this lifestyle, which is holistic. These 10 are about the physical, the intellectual, the social, and the meaning and purpose part of life. Call it the spiritual. And it's critically important. So there it is. Don't be on the fence regarding this, ladies and gentlemen. This is important information. It's, as Yoda says in Star Wars, do or don't do. There is no try. So don't be on the fence. Your life can look like this. You're the one who can do it. Just like neuroplasticity in your brain, you're the architect of your life. Don't be like these guys, dinosaurs, they missed the boat, so to speak. It's never too late to be what you might have been, George Eliot said, and that's true. Maybe you wanted to swim this English Channel and you won't, but you can do it in a pool, a lap a day or something like that. So the small steps with kites in, because you're really an iceberg, most of it is untapped potential that you haven't seen, no matter where you are in your life. Remember this, you have lots of potential. Growing is about healthy longevity. And, like Chuck Yeager, don't let the age control your lifestyle. Let your lifestyle control your age. So wherever you're going to be in a place where you're connected to others and are going to stay connected to others, where you are active, both physically and mentally, stimulated by people and fulfilled, where you find your purpose with others. And most important, where you continue to grow. This is absolutely critically important to a healthy longevity. And there are the 10 tips. And I'm going to open it up to questions. But first, James promised this slide, so I will leave this slide up while we start to fill some questions.
All right, that was fantastic. And I would say the presentation is very entertaining, to say the least.
Well, mission accomplished.
Some of the pictures. So we do have a couple of questions that came through early on. The first one is, at what age do you recommend people moving into a life plan community?
It's not so much a number, is that you can be a year early, but if you're a minute late, the consequences are severe. That's what I usually hear from people who have moved in. So it's really a relative thing. We see people in their 60s sometimes, but usually, low 70s. Unfortunately, right now, it's usually in the 80s. And these people only get to live this life, which makes them better, and it does, relatively shorter time, because they came in later. And so to take full advantage of it, let's face it, it makes sense that you immerse yourself in this stimulating environment as much as possible, because you'll benefit from that. So again, I won't give you so much a number as just remember that you can be a day late, and the consequences are pretty severe. But being early essentially has no repercussions.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you very much. I've heard a lot of answers to that question, but I think yours definitely has a little bit more value and insight into it. But it's true. Most people that I was telling Dr. Landry, I've been in this business now for 29 years as a fairly young man. And one of the most common comments that I get is, I wish I did this 5 years ago. I don't know what I was holding on to, and, some of those kinds of things. And so, the one thing I can tell you is most people that have kids don't say, I wish I did this 5 years ago. So, it's definitely a one-off.
True enough. And I concur, James. I have heard that so many times. It's sad, actually, but I'm glad that they have found their place where they can say, I am happy where I am, and I wish I did it sooner.
Agreed. Another question that came through is, are there certain things we should look for in a community to make sure they are aging successfully?
Look for where?
Certain things we should look for in a community.
In a community. Oh, absolutely. There is, like most things, there is a wide spectrum in communities. Many, communities, some of them have been around for over a century. They came out of the poorhouses of the late 19th century. That's the origin of the actual industry, so to speak. But it has evolved a lot. But some have more than others. So I would look for someone. This, I don't know if you've ever done this, James. This is kind of radical for marketing and a salesperson. But when someone is in front of you asking, seeing about the community, to ask them, what can you bring to the community? That's a radical question, but it shows that this is a community that values you, values your human capital, your history, and believes that the community is made better, not just by those who, get a check from there, but from those who are there together as a unit. And there's so much human capital in a senior living community. So I would look for a place that's going to value you, that's going to challenge you, that's going to allow grassroots things to happen, is going to stimulate you to grow. One that, don't, granite tops are all nice and everything, but really look for the feeling that you get as you walk through. Are these people excited? Are they outgoing? Are they happy to meet you even as you're going around? They don't have to be lifting weights or anything, but are they moving? Are they enjoying social connection? Are there lots of opportunities for social connection? And I'd spend a day or two in one of them and really get the feel for it. I don't know if you allow that, James, but that's a great way to get someone to feel very comfortable about moving in. But this is the 10 things that I just said. A community that realizes those 10 and you see evidence that they're supporting those 10 things for you, that's where you want to be.
Agreed. Another great answer. I always tell people that, when you walk into a community, it has to feel like home. And, everybody's definition of home is different. And that's why every community is different. And so how you feel when you go in really determines whether or not you're going to be happy there. And it starts from when you first walked in. What does the decor look like? Is it decor that you like? Are you familiar with it? Are there colors that you say, oh, I love that color, or I use that color here or there, versus walking into tile and marble and, maybe that's what someone really likes and that's for that person, but it may not be for you. So just an interesting answer on that one. So another question that came through here is dementia is unstoppable. Is there anything that you would suggest to do to try to stave off dementia?
Well, first of all, it's not unstoppable. There is a study by nuns in the Midwest many years ago. They were doing long-term studies because these nuns seemed to be living a long time and were very healthy. And so they were studying a lot of parameters. And when they did some autopsies on them, they found Alzheimer brains with tangled nerves and with plaques. And many of these nuns had no symptoms when they died. They had Alzheimer brains, but no symptoms. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about lifestyle. We're talking about epigenetics, where you can actually put a gene to sleep. So the point is, with lifestyle, what they found with these nuns, and this is mainline science now, this was discovered many years ago. You can look it up as a nun study. It's really a great story. But now we know that lifestyle, that what we talked about in the blue zones and our ancestors and what I just talked about, moving, staying connected, challenging your brain, learning new things, having meaning and purpose. These can, in many people, forestall the onset of symptoms, even when the disease is actually happening, can forestall the symptoms. And to be in a place where you're stimulated regularly and trying new things, these are things which also, as part of the lifestyle, can forestall it. So maybe perhaps it is unstoppable, and there's going to be a lot. It's not that it's more common. It's just that we have more people at risk with their age. And so it can be up to 50% of people over 85. However, we're finding that as the new older adult is saying 85 is, I'm not stopping, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, that the prevalence of that is being affected. Dementia is actually going down in the world. And we're thinking that that's related to a knowledge of heart disease, which is intimately related to dementia, getting blood to the brain. So in many countries, it's actually going down. The rate is going down. So I wouldn't be so fatalistic about it. There's a lot you can do, and it's about lifestyle.
Great. We had a question here that just came through too. Do you allow trial stays to experience a day in a community, as Dr. Landry mentioned? And the truth is that some communities do and some communities don't, that we own. And part of that is because the Cedars of Dexter is 60 houses. We don't keep a house open for trial stays. And it is 100% occupied, so 60 of 60 are there. At Chelsea Retirement Community, there is a guest apartment, as there is at Porter Hills Village. So then it comes out to the availability of the guest apartment. But Dr. Landry's right, doing a trial stay, it really is important. And I'll tell you, from the marketing and sales perspective, we try to partner you with a resident that we think you might have some similar experiences with, life experiences or work experiences or interests. And so that way you can try to assimilate yourself into the community. Also get some meals ready and where to sit and where to go and things to do and a calendar. And so, yeah, those are things that we're talking about. And that actually leads me into what would be my next point here, because we're almost done on time, is this is Chelsea Retirement Community, Cook Valley Estates, and Porter Hills Village, and the Cedars of Dexter. And these are the contact names and phone numbers for those folks. So if you are interested in more information about those communities, this is who you would talk with. And I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. If anybody has a question, please go ahead and type that in now. Dr. Landry, you've been really tremendous to listen to and learn from.
Well, James, I want to congratulate you and your team, what you're doing up there. I don't just mean the marketing team, I mean the whole team. Because obviously your choice in speakers is wonderful. No, no, the fact that you sought me out for the message that I have, which is really for some communities might be considerably a little uneasy because it challenges them to provide those lifestyle characteristics. You're already there. And I'm really pleased to be able to speak with those who are taking a look at you seriously. And I'm not surprised they are. And you may be way north there, but you know, things are warm most of the year. I know.
That's true.
It's community.
Starting to get warm now, so that's a little bit better. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. I did see one more. Thank you, and so I'd like to echo that thought of thank you, Dr. Landry, and thank you all of our participants for joining. You know, we would much rather be doing this in person, as Dr. Landry said, but you know, this is a nice way for us to try to get out some information and make people feel a little bit more connected and understand what we do. And I feel like the more we can get people to understand that a retirement community is nothing to be afraid of, the better off that we are. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And thank you, Dr. Landry, very much for being our guest.
My pleasure, James. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.